Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves and other officials are giving an update now on the impact of the storm. Let's listen.
And when we can get those supplies out to them, we're going to do it. We're going to do it safely so we don't end up in an accident ourselves. I'll answer any questions at the end, but I'll pass it back to Brad to talk about MDOT.
Thank you. First, I would take this opportunity to brag on the men and women that make up the Mississippi Department of Transportation maintenance forces. I feel like our people were very well prepared for the storm, beginning, as the governor said earlier in the week, putting out record number of material to pre-treat the roadways and the bridges around to try to do the best we could to get ahead of what Mother Nature was going to bring. I think it was about 200,000 gallons of brine along with salt and sand and other materials that have been out, strategically placing our employees around the state to cover that impacted area. By and large, what we're seeing now is the parts of the Mississippi Delta, along with all of North Mississippi from the Arkansas line over to the Alabama line, have been heavily impacted. Loss of power, loss of water. The big task that we have before us now is the slush that has been on the roadways today. Tonight will turn back into ice, and that's going to cause a lot of dangerous situations. The other problem we have is a lot of downed trees that are entangled with power lines and other factors that make it extremely unsafe for the motoring public as well as our employees to be out in that. The safety of our crews are our first priority, and so there is a point in the night that we send our folks home in order for them to get rest and get back out at daylight to go back to battling what we have before us. So as the governor said, we can sum up our road conditions and road travel in one word, and that is nope. We would love to see y'all, but not zigzagging across 3 lanes of traffic at 40 miles an hour. So the more that people can stay at home and out of the way, the better it will be for those of us that are trying to clear the roadways and get power and utilities and other things that the public needs back to them. With that, I'll turn it back to the governor, but happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mac. Thank you, Brad. When you think about this storm, you literally, from Mississippi's perspective, you can go to the southwest corner of our state at the Mississippi River and draw a diagonal line all the way up to the northeastern border where Alabama and Tennessee borders meet. And if you are north of that line, then there is likely an impact in the county that you live in. And it's a pretty significant event for us. Brad makes a very important point, which is there are a lot of state assets and state resources here at the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency, at the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, at the Mississippi Department of Transportation, our county employees, our city employees who are out working in dangerous situations. So let's be sure and first of all, pray for them, but also thank them when we see them. But again, if you don't have to be out and about, don't thank them in person for a couple of days, if you don't mind, because I think it'll keep everyone much, much safer. So with that, I will open the floor to questions. Cordianne?
Governor, can you talk about the challenges that come along with kind of the outside factors of things like the TVA transmission line failure and what that looks like for these power associations in North Mississippi that serves such a large swath of the state?
Yeah, so I actually spoke with and have spoken with the CEOs of most of the utility companies over the last couple of days, and spoke with the CEO of TVA earlier today, and they are working to get that back online. There's no question about that. You've got both generation challenges that have been caused by this storm as well as transmission challenges. The transmissions tends to be handled by the rural electric authorities, and so we are all in conversation and communication and cooperation to get the power back on as soon as is humanly possible. The real challenges that exist in an ice storm is in many areas it's not safe for our people to be out and about trying to do things because of the amount of ice that is on the road. And also, it's not just the ice on the road, as Brad said earlier, it's when trees fall across the road, or when a power line that is above ground, a limb falls on the power line, and then the limb and the power line falls across the road. And so there's a unique and different situation in every single county that we're having to deal with. But clearly, the lack of power concerns me the most, because we are going to see such frigid temperatures tonight and tomorrow, and most likely on Monday night as well. And so as I think about the next 36 to 48 hours, I cannot reiterate strongly enough, most of the precipitation is probably out of our state now. Maybe a little bit down in the southeast part, but most of the actual precipitation that's falling from the sky is out of our state. But that doesn't mean that the danger is behind us, because what's going to happen is all of the ice that is currently on the trees, all of the slush that is currently on the roads, because it's getting so cold tonight, we're going to see refreezing. And so even if the sun comes out first thing tomorrow morning, which it's supposed to do, that doesn't mean that it's going to be safe on the roads, because it's literally going to be so frigid. And so I'm concerned about those temperatures and what that means. And it's really the challenge of an ice storm. We haven't seen a storm of this magnitude in terms of ice since 1994. We obviously had some very cold days and some ice that we dealt with in the early part of my administration. I believe it was 2021, I believe. But this magnitude, this large of an area in our state, and quite honestly, this much ice. We haven't seen anything like this since 1994 in Mississippi, so 32 years. So again, I do want to commend our fellow Mississippians. We have been fortunate that most people have stayed off the road today. That has been helpful. And that's allowed those who could get out and about and do their jobs, whether it's utility companies or MDOT or DPS. It's helped the counties and the cities. But again, we need to continue to stay in that mode for a little while longer.
Yes, AC Lewis with 12 News. I was wondering, you mentioned that Trump signed the emergency resource fund. I was wondering, when do you think that the funds will kind of begin distributing throughout the state to the people that need it the most?
Well, obviously the initial declaration is really about the resources that we need to be able to get resources to the cities and counties, things like generators for our long-term care facilities, as an example. It is truckloads of water that we can send to the various warming stations, as well as loads of cots and blankets and tarps. It also allows for a federal cost share as we progress forward as to exactly what those resources look like. We'll continue to work through that depending upon the longevity of this scenario.
Yeah, Carlos Garcia with 16 WFT. Most of the northern counties of the state are the ones that have been battered by the ice and the snow. Is there a plan to prioritize them with these federal grants, and what's the message to the residents of those northern counties?
Yeah, well, I will tell you, when you look at the amount of ice in the Mississippi Delta, it's pretty incredible. Not too far northwest of Metro Jackson, there's some pretty serious ice that has fallen in what I would consider the South Delta. And so we've got a very large area that is currently dealing with ice, and a very large area that is currently dealing with lost power. And so, you know, when we talk about prioritization, the utility companies are going to prioritize getting the most number of people back online as quickly as possible and get power back to the residences and the businesses across Mississippi as quickly as possible. And so that's something that they certainly have done for many, many years, and will prioritize this year as well.
Michael Goldberg with Mississippi Today has a question.
Great.
Hi, Governor. Thank you. We just learned that that Mississippi State Penitentiary at Parchman and the Delta Correctional Facility in Greenwood both lost power. What information can you provide us about the situation at those prisons. We've heard that inmates have gone hours without heat and food. And what can you tell us about what's going on there now and also the cause as well?
Yeah, so the cause is obviously the frigid weather and the ice. We are aware of that. We are working on getting that done. I don't have any visibility in the last hour as to exactly where they are, but I'm confident that we will get that back online via generator. If not already, then very soon.
Elise Gray.
We've been listening to Mississippi officials, including the governor there, talk about this weekend storm and what comes next. They are worried about more ice. They basically say this hasn't been this big of an issue since 1994. So not completely unprecedented, but certainly it has been a while since they have contended with these kinds of conditions. The governor has declared a state of emergency. It started on Friday. It at least will go through Tuesday. We'll continue to monitor what's going on here. And the 34 other states that are dealing with these winter weather conditions, we've got you covered for updates throughout the day. Stay with CBS News 24/7.